You're listening to the Gutsy Podcast, where we talk about all things real, raw, and ridiculous about running a business authentically. Whether you need an inspirational pick-me-up or a swift kick in the mental ass, the Gutsy Podcast is your bi-weekly guide to getting out of your head and back into action. I'm Laura Ora, branding and mindset coach for female entrepreneurs, CEO of Works & Co., and your host on this journey through entrepreneurship. It's time to fuel your gutsy. You are an energetic being having a human experience. Every day, there are thoughts and circumstances that can penetrate your energy and either enhance it or cause you to get out of personal alignment. Today's conversation is all about the power of tapping, and I'm grateful to have the most beautiful soul, Lauren Frontiera, whose work is rooted in ancient wisdom, modalities, and tools to help you heal, grow, and expand. Lauren is a certified EFT practitioner, hypnotherapist, and intuitive soul coach and guide for humans seeking more soul guidance for their spiritual journeys and awakenings. She brings a multidimensional approach to her work to support your mind, body, and soul. Lauren specializes in the energetic practice of tapping, past life soul regression, and spiritual hypnotherapy. Her work is rooted in the belief that you have within you all the answers that you are ready for, and her hope is to guide you home to that truth. Gosh, I love that so much. I cannot wait to have this conversation. Lauren, welcome to the Gutsy Podcast.
Thank you, Laura. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Absolutely. So I have to first tell everybody the power of being online. I'm telling you, Lauren and I connected on TikTok. I found her because I'm, going through my own energetic expansion, and I came across her videos and I was telling her before our recorded conversation that her energy was like, and I've been like hooked ever since. So thank you for being here with us today.
I'm so excited. So honored.
Yes, absolutely. So tell me a little bit about your journey, both in entrepreneurship and energy work, and like what has led you to be where you are today?
Yeah, that's a big question.
It is a big question.
It's funny. I always hesitate when people ask that because I'm like, where do I begin? It's been such a winding journey. And when I think about that, and when I say winding journey, I see and think of a river, like when you're in an airplane flying over the land and you can actually see from that upper vantage point how the river like twists and turns. Like it's not a direct stream to the ocean where it empties out, right? It's like back and forth and back and forth. My journey in the business space and finding my way to the work that I'm doing has very much felt like that. I did not intend on being where I am today, and I'm so grateful that it has unfolded this way. So, long story short, out of college, like within my first 2 years out of college, I think I had I'd have to count again. It's been a long time since I've counted, but like 7 different jobs. I was really struggling in those first few years to find myself, to find where I felt called and the work that I felt called into. And through that journey, I ended up leaving the corporate world and starting my first business, which was a product-based business. Feels like lifetimes ago. It was actually a granola company called Nothing But Nola. And
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah. So my mom and I went into business together. And that was really like where I had studied entrepreneurship in college, which it's one thing to study it. It's a totally different thing to actually practice in real life. But I always knew that I felt this call and this tug to do something in the world that I created. So started there with that granola company. And we had a mission similar to Tom's Shoes, where for every bag of granola sold, we were giving one meal to someone who was struggling with food insecurity. And that grew that for several years. And I realized granola was not something I wanted to be doing. Started that business initially because granola was a passion and something my mom was really loving at the time. And I was interested in the business side of things. And In growing that, though, that led me, that point of the river flowed me into this world of online business. And I ended up making and meeting the most incredible friends and the most incredible community of other women who are building and growing businesses. And in doing that, myself and in building relationships with them, realize there's so much more to it. Like that's going on a personal level, so much doubt, so much fear, so many beliefs that are rising up. And so I ended up closing that first business and then launching a podcast. And the podcast was a space where I would interview women entrepreneurs of all sizes, women who had, just started businesses and were building and growing this solopreneur operation, and then women who are running multi-million-dollar companies. And it was with the intention of like really getting the behind the scenes journey, right? Reminding all of us who felt called to this dream to create and do work in the world, inviting people into this space that it's okay, right? For it to feel difficult and for it to feel hard and to flow through those ebbs of life. And again, the doubts and the fears, they're just rising as you go through that journey. And I had a membership community for women entrepreneurs at the time as well. And then I think that for a lot of people, when we're on this journey of personal growth and development, we either continue on that path or it sort of forks off into this spiritual journey and awakening.
Mm-hmm.
And that happened for me while I was doing that work. And yeah, that was a really lonely and confusing time for me. And I came to this point where I built this business, I built this platform, but I felt really called to start sharing more of my journey, right? I was highlighting other people's journeys and experiences, and the work that I was doing from a spiritual sense and how that was impacting my growth and evolution as a human and as a business owner and as a sister and a friend and all of these things. I felt really called to share that work. And so I ended up once again shifting away from the business that I'd built and building my own personal brand. And that's really where my work of intuition and guiding people home to those truths began. In those early days of business for me, one of the things I really struggled with was looking outside of myself for the answers, looking to other people who had built successful businesses and built, platforms like I wanted to build, and trying to replicate their journey, and it just didn't fit. I felt this disconnection, and I wanted to trust myself. I wanted to trust my knowing, but there was so much doubt. There was so much fear. And so as I began to go on that journey of like really reconnecting with myself and my truth from the lens of knowing and trusting that I have within me all of the answers that I need right now in this moment to show up in my truth, to feel empowered, to feel aligned, to feel confident in the very next step that I take. I it was so transformative for me. And so I wanted to start sharing that work with others again through that very soul-led spiritual lens. So yeah, I eventually signed up for a certification. It was a coaching certification in several modalities. The one I was most interested in is hypnosis, which is part of the work that I do today. There were several other modalities, neurolinguistic programming, really like the language of the subconscious. And one of the other modalities that happened to be included was tapping. And at the time, I was least interested in tapping and I was most skeptical of it. I really didn't have any knowledge or awareness of it, but I just remember feeling really skeptical. But I was like, you know what? I'm paying for the certification. It's included. I'll learn it, whatever. But I had no intentions of actually infusing that into the work that I did, which is just
Isn't
like,
it? Isn't that funny?
right. Life has such a funny sense of humor because it's become the foundation of the work that I do and share with others. And Laura, it's also become the one modality that I use nearly every single day in my own life. And I don't know how I would be where I'm at today and feeling the way that I feel, content, empowered, feeling so aligned. Tapping completely transformed my experience with my intuition. And took that connection that I'd really spent years, you know, connecting with and trying to feel more aligned with. And it helped me drop into this embodied connection with my intuition that just, I am forever grateful. So yeah, I ended up going through the certification, learning about tapping. And through that, I was practicing it and using it in my own life and was blown away. Like it was in 20 minutes, I would take this belief that had felt so overwhelming, like had me sick to my stomach, so much doubt, so much insecurity. And 20 minutes later, I'd feel like a whole new person. And I was like, this
Wow.
is blowing my mind. I've never, I struggled with anxiety for years. And so that thought spiral, like it often feels like a spiral for me where
Yep.
the thoughts are so loud and the doubt and the fear, and it can become debilitating and you feel paralyzed. I had struggled with that for years, and I'd found things that would help me feel more calm, but nothing that would really shift that in a really profound way. And tapping was doing that for me, and I was blown away. So I started sharing it with my one-on-one clients at the time. And then even then, I felt a lot of resistance to sharing it more publicly in like a group setting for whatever reason. But I kept having people ask me to. And it was really this like life and the universe guiding me and encouraging me through these external opportunities of people asking me to do guided tapping for their membership or community, or people asking me to do more videos on my Instagram at the time. And I eventually ended up starting to do them on TikTok. And they were the videos that kept blowing up. Like people wanted more tapping, and I was like, why am I resisting this? Like this is the practice that's changing and transforming my life. I know how incredible it is, and people are asking for it. So why would I resist this? So yeah, I mean that's the short end version of how I got here. It really feels like life led me to this place. I obviously trusted the unfolding of it, but it wasn't something that I intentionally sought to build. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful.
Well, I think it's such, gosh, thank you for that. It's such a beautiful story to hear because I think it's also a reminder slash confirmation for some people that are listening that maybe don't feel like they are where they're supposed to be yet,
Mm.
and knowing that it is a journey
Hmm.
and that it is about listening to yourself and it is about like going inward versus outward. I love how you said like you were constantly looking outside of yourself for answers. Gosh, I think that we could all like stand up and clap and say, "Yep, yep, me too," or "I've been there," because it's almost as if we don't trust, right? Like I mean, that's really what it boils down to is not trusting what we're thinking or feeling on the inside and looking for others for answers, even though we already have it.
Hmm. Yeah. Or the confirmation of what we already know, right?
Yeah.
Or the validation or affirmation. And that is it's such a lonely path because it always feels empty. Like even when we get that external validation, even when we get that external approval, if there's an emptiness, this inherent emptiness to it, because that's not actually what we're desiring. Like we're really desiring that knowing from within ourselves, and to trust that, like that is what feels so steady and grounded and deep and profound.
Yes, absolutely. There's a huge difference energetically doing something that you feel fulfilled from versus doing something that you should do
Mm-hmm.
or following someone else's footsteps or doing, all these things that we're being told to do on a regular basis. Is like, man, there's such a huge difference energetically that
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to even put into words.
Totally. And one other thing, if I could share this, Laura, because it's like coming up for me in this moment.
Please.
There, sharing the story from such a high level like that too can also like it leaves out the mess of the journey, right? In a way. And there was several years where when I the term spiritual awakening, like I really believe we are always awakening throughout our entire lifetime. However, I believe that period that people are often talking about is like when we bring conscious awareness to the awakening, when we become aware of what's happening. And for me, that started like in 2018. And those like next 2 or 3 years, I remember feeling I was still doing the podcast at the time, but I felt this strong tug, this intuitive knowing that I was meant to do work that was different than what I was doing. And I kept calling it my work or the work. And I remember going to therapy and like talking through this, and I would feel so frustrated because I was like starting to connect with intuition and starting to have this clear connection with my soul and my guides. And yet I felt so confused. I was like, I don't know what it is, but there was this knowing that I felt called to do some work, but I couldn't name it. I had absolutely no idea what it was. And I think that a lot of times with intuition, whether that is your career or your relationships or where you're living or whatever that may be, when we are trusting ourselves and moving in that way, it unfolds one step at a time, right? And so like, can we really trust ourselves enough to trust that this right next step will lead us to the right next step, and that will lead us to the right next step without always having to know what the right next step, a year or 6 months down the road is going to be.
That's beautiful. It is important to talk about the mess in between, right? Because especially with social media, we can get a highlight reel or see like these people that are awakening or are, quote unquote, arriving or whatever, however you want to classify it. But it's like the work to get there is really profound. But when you stay the course and you really allow yourself to go through that journey, whether it's great or not so great or a combination of the two, it's it really can be life changing, because it's really all about getting back into it. Like, I see it as like coming back to being who you were always meant to be in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. Who you
It's
always were, right? It's like right there within us. It is us. It is you.
Yes, it
Mhm.
is. Do you love taking those quizzes? You know which ones I'm talking about, the ones that tell you which Disney princess you are and what your name reveals about you. What if I told you that I could pinpoint exactly where you are unintentionally giving away your power in your business? This is what I like to call a power leak. Think of it like having the heat blaring in the middle of winter, but the back window has a crack in it and all of the cold air is coming in. Guess where all your energy is going? Out the back window. The same goes for your power leak. These spaces, your mind, time, voice, presence, or money, are your biggest opportunity for growth. If you're ready to learn where you are unintentionally giving away your power, go to lauraora.com and take the free Power Leak quiz. 11 questions, less than 5 minutes, and a whole lot of self-discovery and opportunities await. I also would love to talk about, because you talked about resisting the
Mm.
thing. And I know that can, gosh, I resonate so high with that. It's like the thing is right there, it's in front of you, but it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. Or I'm going to, that can't possibly be it, right? Sometimes I think that the answer seemingly is so simple and in front of us that we
Mm.
can't believe that it's so simple and in front of us. So we have to go out and look for something else.
Mm. Yeah.
What was that like when you were resisting tapping, and like how did you move through that to move it to a space of allowing?
Yeah. I I think one of the reasons we resist it so much is because um it's not always what we expect it to be. Um,
Mm.
and my husband Josh and I laugh because we will, oh, what is our, plan for the next 3 years? What is our plan for the next year? And I laugh now. I'm like, I cannot even possibly tell you that, because
Yes.
every single time we have tried to pretend like we are able to predict life,
Hmm.
life shortly after goes wrong, like
Just kidding. That was really
right.
cute of you to try.
Right. And so, yet we do it. One of the like second stages of like the tapping process that I teach, I call honoring the story. And this is because we live in story. If we slow way down and notice, we are living in all of these stories that we are writing for ourselves about how our life will unfold, about how it should unfold, stories about who we are, who we should be, who we could be. And when those stories do not, when life does not unfold according to those stories, which it often does not, it can be devastating and it can be confusing and we can resist it, right? And this is something I am still learning, this space of like, what is it like to be in my power? So not giving up my power, just going, oh, life, do what you will. No, no, no. Staying in my power and saying, this is what I know to be true. This is what I know to be aligned. Here's that right next step. Yet I'm going to trust the unfolding of life. And now that I have this practice of tapping, when those fears are coming up that make that really tough, when those doubts are coming up that make me question if I'm making the right choice, can I tap through them? But at this point in my business, that resisting, I truly believe, looking back, it's because what life was guiding me to actually do, tapping, what people were asking me to share more of, tapping, was not the story that I'd written for my business. It was not the business I set out to build. You know, my business is still rooted in the foundation of what it originally was, which again is intuition and guiding people home to themselves and their own knowing. However, I never saw tapping as being one of the modalities that I was going to use to help people do that. You know, like even going back to like the certification, like it was the one thing that I was most skeptical of. Like it was the one thing I was least interested in. And even then, even when I could tell you, wow, this practice is incredible. It's changing my life. It's changing me. And I'm seeing it change my one-on-one clients. I still didn't see myself as being this person who tapping was foundational to the work that I did in the world. So I think that resistance was like, wait, this doesn't align with my story. I'm still trying to force my story.
Yeah, gosh, that makes so much sense because if you think about, like business plans are coming up right now for me. If you think about sitting down and writing a business plan, like this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And I think that there's some framework there, but I think when you're an energetic creature, which I believe that all of us are on different levels, like you said, you were so fixated on the hows and what you thought it was going to be that it becomes difficult to allow the things that you're supposed to be doing to come in. And I never really thought about it like that. It's like it's resisting the thing because you saw it going differently. Well, this wasn't in my plan. This wasn't in my 5-year plan, or this is, I wasn't planning on opening TikTok, for instance, or, like it's so much resistance of pushing away, even though the universe is like, hey, how about we try this? I think this is going to work for you. I don't know. I just find that really profound.
Yeah. It's that once we write the story or make that plan, we then try to control it, which creates more resistance to the unfolding of life. And sometimes this is when oh my gosh, I could say so much about this, but in business terms, business plans and plans in life in general can serve us so beautifully, even as intuitive, flowy humans, they can.
Huh?
And yet, if you ask business owners, there's so many people out there who the business they set out to create ended up changing and transforming. It wasn't what they initially expected it to be, right? And this is part of, I believe, one of the core qualities that's needed in order to build a successful business, whatever that is the ability to shift and change and notice what needs to change and evolve. I'm thinking of this one story. Do you know the brand Greetable?
I can't say that I'm familiar with it.
They're so cool. They make these incredible like cards, but they're in this box shape. You should like check them out. Their work is like really cool.
Absolutely.
But I had interviewed the founder for my podcast all those years ago, and I remember her talking about the initial idea they had for how the card design was going to be and how they were going to sell it. And they realized early on, like, this isn't working. Like, it's actually not growing the way that we expected it to. They went back to the drawing board. They evolved the initial idea, right? And then the business started growing and expanding. And so, like, even in the plans, can we still be open to trusting that those nudges when we're like, this isn't working, I need to change, I need to evolve, and life is guiding me to show up a little differently, or to share this work or this product in a different way.
Amazing. You hit the nail on the head. Entrepreneurship is fluid, and
Mm,
it's like a prerequisite to be an entrepreneur. You have to be able to move with it because it's not always what you set out to be.
mhm,
Things come up and you have to be creative, and the thoughts and feelings and expectations, like things just it's just not black and white. That is for sure. Um, and when you can really tune in and see like, hey, this isn't working, even though we thought it would, it takes tremendous um, power, I believe, from the inside out to say, you know what, this isn't working. Let's pivot. Let's adjust and let's go to where people are hungry, but also what still feels in alignment with us, right? I think that's important too, is just not to just do what everyone is asking of you if that doesn't feel right to you as well.
totally. Amen.
So trusting yourself, I that topic is always hot when I put that up online or I'm talking about it. And it's really about like understanding how to trust yourself. So I'm curious, how do you guide people to better understand their unique, you know, trusting mechanisms, right? Like I think everyone feels it and senses it in a slightly different way. What are some cues? How do you help people to trust themselves?
Mhm. So the first step is always to slow down. And I think this is also where people often feel the most resistance.
Hmm.
Um, but the metaphor I like to share here is, imagine any relationship that you are in. Let's imagine that you and I, we're roommates, we're friends, we live together, and yet every time I pass you in the house, I just run by. Or, oh, hi Laura, how you doing? How are you? How's life? And yet I run by so quickly that I actually don't give you the opportunity to answer. Or even if you do answer, I'm long gone. I'm somewhere else and I'm not even able to listen. Our intuition, that internal knowing ourselves, our truth, however you want to define it, I refer to it as intuition. Um, that knowing, in order for us to even begin to attune to it and then be able to trust it, we first have to slow down so that we can listen, so that we can connect with ourselves. And if we are not creating that space to like slow down and be present with ourselves, then learning to trust ourselves is really difficult. And there are so many ways that we can do that: slowing down, journaling, meditating, tapping, these practices that really invite us into deeper presence and awareness with ourselves and what we're feeling and what is coming up. That is where cultivating that trust begins. And then once we do slow down and are beginning to notice all of that, right? Once, again, going back to that metaphor, once I slow down long enough to actually hear how you're doing and to respond and to be in conversation with you, trust is something that is built and that is cultivated. So we can start small, right? By trusting how we feel and allowing ourselves to then take those steps forward. We have to actually begin to embody that and to move from that place. But even to begin doing that, we have to first begin slowing down and begin to build and cultivate that relationship and that connection with ourselves. So that is where I always guide people to begin. And one of the reasons tapping can be so helpful and so supportive in this initial stage is because in this modern day world we live in, we are moving and life is often moving at a very fast pace. All around us, we're feeling triggered, we're in fight or flight, our nervous system is triggered, we're feeling anxious, we're feeling stressed and overwhelmed. And from that place, it's impossible to slow down and tune in to ourselves and our intuition, simply because our bodies in that space are just trying to keep themselves safe. That is it. That is all. So as you're tapping through the tapping points, you're actually helping to calm the nervous system. So it's so great for nervous system regulation, and it is actually helping us shift out of the sympathetic nervous system and into the parasympathetic nervous system. It's calming. Simply tapping and breathing can be so calming. And from that place, we can come back to ourselves. We can come back to our bodies, and we can begin to tune in. And again, from that place, that's where trust can begin to be cultivated.
Mm. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions about tapping. We're going to get into that in just a second because I have one last lingering question that came up, and even more just kind of an observation. You talked earlier about like the spiral
Mm,
and with anxiety and how things just kind of really there's like stages of anxiety, and but once you get into that spiral and where everything is heightened, right, like
mhm,
your heart's racing and things feel chaotic and you're rushing and like just everything gets really crazy, your body is like, I don't know what to do, so we're all freaking out.
mhm,
And you're talking about how to truly take your power back in a moment like that, because I think that that can be a very frustrating and discouraging place to be, because it's like I don't even know what to do with myself right now,
mhm,
but an answer can be tapping.
mhm.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right, let's transition into tapping. So talk to me. We're talking about tapping, but could you help to reference and kind of put some framework around what is tapping?
Yeah. So tapping is a combination of ancient Chinese acupressure and modern day psychology. So to break that down a little bit, tapping is rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, which is thousands of years old. Um, Acupressure, ancient Chinese acupressure is simply using light pressure or gentle tapping to activate meridian points in the body, which is what we are doing in tapping. Tapping has evolved because the foundation of tapping is really speaking out loud what it is that we're feeling, right? One of the beautiful things about tapping is that we are not bypassing the truth of our experience. So if I'm feeling anxious in this moment, I'm not just tapping and going, oh, like, I need to avoid that anxiety. No, we're being really present with it, whether that is anxiety, whether that is fear, whether that is a limiting belief that is no longer serving us. We're speaking that out loud. And one of the cool things that's happening with tapping, if we were to break this down just a little bit, like I was sharing, when you're tapping on these points, they found that you're actually calming that fight or flight response. So, our bodies, our brains are always looking out for threats and then responding accordingly. And when it perceives a threat, whether that threat is real or just perceived, right? Whether that is something simply happening inside of our heads, it's a story that we're writing that is sending us into that stress response, our bodies respond that way. And so, as we are tapping on those points, we're actually sending a signal to that part of the brain that's responsible for the fight or flight response. And we're saying, hey, I'm okay, I'm good, I'm safe, right? Everything's good. And so, in this, we can actually rewire our mind body response to things. So, limiting beliefs that are sending us into that fight or flight response, that are creating energetic resistance, that are really holding us back from living our truth, from creating and doing the things that we want to do in our life. We can use tapping while speaking those out loud to really support our minds and bodies in rewiring that trigger and that response. Um, it's also an energetic practice. So, in traditional Chinese medicine, it is believed that qi or life energy flows through the meridians in the body. And the points that we are tapping on in tapping are meridian points. So, one of the other things that's happening as you're tapping is you are freeing up stuck and stagnant energy in the body. So, it can feel like a big release as you're tapping. It can feel like a big emotional release. It can feel like just like a big energetic release. Um, and because everything is energy, we can use tapping for so much, for everything. So yeah, it's such a cool practice
Wow.
with while it's a modern day practice, it has like ancient roots that are thousands of years old.
Yeah, it's incredible. It almost feels like one of those things where it's like, that sounds too easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like that. It's like you don't need anything, right? You don't
Mm-hmm.
have to buy anything. You don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to do it. Like you could literally sit at your desk or in your bed or on your couch and do this, right? Like you don't need any tools to do this. Am I correct in saying that?
You are. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it almost feels like, okay, all this like heightened energy that I've been storing, you're telling me that I could shift that by tapping.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I hope everyone that's listening right now is like, please tell me more because I'm ready to shift this shit.
Right. Right.
I love that you talked about, and I'd like to learn a little bit more about how it's about honoring, not ignoring.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that sometimes when we are so anxious, it's almost like we get upset about we get upset with ourselves about being anxious. So that heightens the anxious feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what you were talking about talking out loud and honoring it, not ignoring it. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, totally. Um, I'm in the live round of my tapping course right now, and it's so funny because like this is the work we're doing, and everyone has said this saying, right? Like, oh, I'm resisting the resistance. Um, which is sort of like what you're talking about. We do that, right? And this is why honoring, we could even say honoring the resistance, but again, the space that I talk about is honoring the story, but it completely shifts that experience because if I'm feeling anxious and now I'm just like, oh, I like, whether I'm trying to numb that anxiety or just shove it down, that's actually creating more resistance for
Mm,
myself. The same goes for sadness, for grief, for limiting beliefs. Really, it goes across the board. If I have a belief that's like, if I'm noticing the belief that like I'm not worthy of doing what I want to do is coming up for me, I often people will often like be like, but I know that's not true. Like I know that's not true, but I feel inherently unworthy, right? Well, if I'm just like, oh, screw the belief, like I'm just gonna like bulldoze ahead, we're
yep.
still resisting that resistance. It's boom, it's gonna pop back up later, right? So when we can shift and instead honor, surrender to, fully accept what is coming up for us, oh my God, it changes everything because that anxiety, that fear, that grief, that sadness, that unworthiness, whatever it is that's rising, it's rising because it's ready to be released. It's rising because the energy of that you have been holding on to within your body and your energetic field for potentially years can no longer coexist as you continue to grow and expand. It is no longer aligned, and it's simply rising up so that you can heal it, so that you can release it. And in order to do that, we have to be present with it. Those parts of ourselves, like as we really begin to attune to them, often are just really desiring to be seen and known and acknowledged. And I am telling you, when you do that, that is the fastest way through it. Like going around it, trying to ignore it. I spent years doing all of that as well. I know that it just creates more weight and pressure and sadness and fear and anxiety in your life. And there can be a fear and like, oh my gosh, but what happens when I really slow down and am present with it? It is the fastest way through it. And it is such a freeing experience.
Gosh, I can completely relate to like all those years of fighting fighting yourself, right? Fighting the feeling, resisting those energies that are coming up. And I love how you said that if it's coming up, it's ready to be released.
Mm-hmm.
Like if when it's at the surface, right? Like it's pretty obvious when those things start to come up. And maybe you don't even recognize it, right? Maybe it's hard to pinpoint what that is, but you know that you're feeling something. And knowing that the power really is in just kind of honoring it versus trying to shove it in a junk drawer and pretend like it doesn't exist.
Totally.
You talked about the meridian points. So talk to me a little bit about like the actual like what what is tapping? Where are these points? Like just kind of give us some framework to visualize what tapping looks like.
Yep. So if you've ever experienced acupuncture, for anyone who may be familiar with that, um, you will know that there are points all throughout the body, right? From the top of the head to the bottoms of the feet, there are meridian points all throughout the body. Tapping was created as a simplified practice so that anyone could do it, just like you were saying earlier, Laura. Anyone can do this practice anywhere, anytime, without needing to go to a practitioner, without needing this really in-depth understanding of, you know, what the meridians are connected to and where all the different points are throughout the body. So, as long as you are tapping through the 9 foundational points of tapping, they're all beginning or end points of the meridians. You're getting all of them. So, there are 9 points. I know people aren't watching us now, they're listening, but the first point is on the side of the hand, and it's called the side of hand point or the setup point. So you can think about this point sort of like the foundational point in tapping, like the foundation of a house. Once it's built, we don't need to rebuild it. So once we start with that side of hand point, we're then just going to tap through the other 8 points over and over again. We don't have to come back to the side of hand point. You'll see different practitioners doing it differently, but you don't have to come back again. It's just the setup point. Um,
And when you say the side of hand, are we talking about the side where your thumb is or the outer where your pinky is?
where your pinky is. So it's right below your pinky, that little meaty part of the side of the hand.
Got it.
Yep. And this point, as the setup point, a common phrase that is tapped through on this point is, even though blank, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. So even though I feel anxious, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Or even though I believe I'm unworthy, I deeply and completely love and accept myself, whatever it is that you're working on. There's lots of phrases that I like to use on that point, but that's just a common, easy one that you can use. And then the other 8 points will begin tapping through. The first point is called the eyebrow point. So it is just right inside of where your eyebrow would be. And the points do run down both sides of your body. So you can tap on either side and you can use either hand. Do you want me to go through and like kind of describe where all of the points are?
Yes, that would be
Okay,
incredible.
cool. Yep. So the eyebrow point is just right here, right there on the inner point of where the eyebrow would be, like right above the nose. And then the next point is the side of eye point. This is just right on your temple. So right there beside of the eye on the side of your head. The next point is the under eye point. So this is literally just right below your eye. And as you're tapping there, you may feel like a little bone there, just right there underneath your eye. The next point is the under nose point. So it is in that space below your nose and above your upper lip, just right there in the center. And the next point is the chin point. So this chin point is right below your bottom lip and your chin. There may be like a little crease there, just right there in the center is the chin point. The next point is the collarbone point. So if you feel here in the center part of your chest, right below your throat, you'll probably feel the 2 points of your collarbone sticking up. These points are about an inch below that bone that you feel sticking up there. But my favorite way to tap here is open palm. So just like flat hand and tapping right there in the center part of your upper chest. And then the next point is the underarm point. So this point is about on the side of your body. So like where the seam of like your t-shirt would run on the very side of your body. And it's about halfway between the upper part of your hip and your armpit, or like 4 or so inches below your armpit there on the side of the body. So you're just going to tap there on the side of the body. And then the final point is the top of head point, and it's just in the very center top part of the head. And those are all the points.
Amazing. And do you typically go in that order? Like, is there a right or wrong way? Or
Yep. So again, you'll see practitioners going in a different order. That is the order that I always go in. So after I move through the setup point, the side of hand point, I'm then going to start at the eyebrow point and move through until I get to the top of the head point, and that is 1 round. And then I'm going to go back to the eyebrow point and begin to move through them over again.
okay. And how many rounds do you typically go through?
It really depends. This is where this practice is really intuitive. If you are feeling anxious and you only have time to go through 1 round, go through one round. That is so much better than nothing at all. And it'll take you, 90 seconds to do that, right? Um, but depending on what you're tapping through, really guides in terms of how long you're tapping for.
I love it. There's no right or wrong, just
Yeah,
intuitively what feels right to you.
totally.
And I know that you started to mention about a phrase that you were saying when you're on the side of your hand. Are you saying phrases throughout each tapping point? And when you say tapping, like we're literally tapping, right? Like we're
Yep.
literally like tapping these areas.
Yep. So using the tips of your fingers to just gently tap on those points to activate the meridian. And it's just a gentle pressure, right? You don't need to tap super hard, just a light, gentle pressure on those points to
I
activate the
don't
meridian.
just picture people like, boom, like I want to feel safe. Like, no,
Right.
it's a gentle practice.
Yeah, it doesn't, it shouldn't be painful. You may notice there are some points that you're tapping on that may be like a little tender. That's okay, but you don't need to tap so hard that it's painful.
That's good. That's good. And these sayings,
Yeah.
is there rights or wrongs, or what types of things are you saying as you're tapping through these points?
Yeah, so there is no right or wrong way. I do a lot of guided tapping videos, which people can find, and in those, you're just repeating after me, right? They're more like affirmations and phrases. Once you begin to do this work yourself, you can speak out loud whatever is coming up for you. So
Mm,
this is part of the work that a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, I feel nervous. I don't know the right words to say. I'm not sure what to say. And this is a lot of the work that I do. But again, just like you said, Laura, like there are no right words in tapping, right? So if I'm noticing that I'm feeling anxious, I also teach tapping in a very energetic and embodied way. So we're not just noticing that I feel anxious, but I would guide you through really tuning into like where are you noticing that anxiety in your body right now. So some of the questions I'll ask, and for everyone listening, like if you're noticing that you feel anxious, like just sort of notice what comes to you as I ask these questions. But like I would encourage you to like slow down, take a deep breath, maybe even close your eyes, tune into your body and notice. If you were to know, where is that anxiety within your body right now? And really just trust your first knowing. Like, are you feeling it in your stomach? Is it in your chest? Is it in your head? And do you feel it in your back or your shoulders? And then really begin to tune to that energetically. What does it feel like? Does it have any weight or pressure to it? Does it feel tight or open? What does that feel like? Notice if that energy has any shape or color to it, right? So we're really going to like slow down and tune to where within our bodies or our energetic fields we're also holding that. And then once we begin tapping, we're going to tap through the story. So those thoughts that are coming up, maybe I'm feeling anxious. And so I would just start saying, I'm noticing that I'm feeling anxious right now, right? I feel so anxious and it feels like a tightness in my chest. And I don't like how this feels. I don't like feeling out of control, whatever that is. We're going to tap while speaking those out loud. Again, this is the way that I teach and guide tapping, which is a very embodied um, way that invites us into deep, deep presence with our experience.
it's so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Would you be willing to guide us through one round of tapping
Totally,
so we could experience it?
totally.
Amazing.
What are we tapping on? What is our
Well,
intention?
I mean, I feel like we've talked a lot about anxiety, and I think that
Mm,
that's a very common emotion
yeah,
and feeling. So how does that feel to you?
yeah, totally. Let's do it.
Awesome.
And
I'm gonna mute so that
okay,
my tapping is not like pounding in the microphone. So, and
cool.
then I'll just come back on whenever we're complete.
Cool, beautiful. Yeah. So, everyone, I just want to invite you to get like cozy in your seat. Even if you're listening to this while driving, you can tap while driving, as long as you can reach the point. Just be careful, or maybe wait until you're not driving, but you can do this anywhere, as long as you can tap through those points. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to speak a phrase out loud as we tap on each point, and I'll create some space after so that you can repeat after me, speak that out loud. And then I will let you know once we move through to the next point, now that you know where the points are. All right. So we're going to tap here on the side of hand point to begin with. Remember, you can use either hand and you can tap on either side. So tapping here on the side of your hand, go ahead and take a slow breath in through your nose and let it go through your mouth. And repeat after me. Even though I'm feeling anxious right now, I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Beautiful. Keep tapping on this point. We're going to do another phrase here. Remember to breathe as you're tapping and just repeat after me. Even though I feel this anxiety, I know that it is safe for me to feel more calm. Beautiful. Slow breath in and sigh it out through your mouth. We're going to move now to the eyebrow point. I'm noticing what this anxiety feels like. Beautiful. Moving to the side of the eye point, tapping on the side of the eye there on the temple, and repeating after me. It is safe for me to notice this anxiety right now. Beautiful. Tapping under the eye. It is safe for me to feel this anxiety right now. Beautiful. Tapping under the nose. It is safe for me to feel this because I know that I am safe right now. Beautiful. Tapping on the chin point. Everything is going to be okay. Beautiful. Tapping on the collarbone point. In this moment, I am safe. Tapping under the arm. Everything is going to be okay. Beautiful. And tapping on the top of head point. As you tap here, take a slow breath in and let it go. And repeat after me. It is safe for me to feel more calm in my body right now. And let your hand float to your lap. And for just a moment, if you can, close your eyes and take several slow, expansive breaths in through your nose and sigh it out through your mouth, just supporting the energy and moving and flowing. What we just did there is you supported energy that may have been held in your body for a long time and releasing. So you may have felt that release. And it's important to slow down here and support that integration. And you are also calming the nervous system. So even with just that one round, you may notice that you feel a little bit calmer already. You can go through and do that again and again and again. And if you're feeling anxious, I would encourage you to tap through as many rounds as you need until you do feel your body calm and it begins to feel safer to be present in your body.
Oh, Lauren, see, this is why I call you a beautiful soul.
Mm.
Your energy is just so soothing and calming, and it's honestly just really encouraging to know that we have. Oh, look, I'm gonna like cry. That definitely moves some energy. That we have way more control than
Mm.
what our minds and bodies try and tell us sometimes.
Mm.
And that's just
Yeah,
so encouraging. So thank you for the work that you do.
totally. And if I could say as well, Laura, that emotion rising, I feel that too right now, just after tapping through that first round. Like I shared earlier, as we are tapping, we are really helping energy that may have been held or stuck for a long time release. And um, a lot of times that can feel like a rising of emotion, the desire to cry. We can experience it in a lot of different ways, but that's one really common way. So if you notice that feeling to cry, it's very normal as you're
Yeah.
tapping.
that's the emotion releasing, right?
Yeah.
It's moving out and through, which is beautiful. Like you can do that. That's the human body is absolutely incredible to know
Mm-hmm.
that in just a 3 minute time frame that we have the power to shift whatever is happening in this moment.
Totally. Totally.
Oh,
The magic of tapping is your magic, right? And this is what I tell people. Tapping is powerful because you are tapping into your body's innate healing wisdom and capacity. That is you.
I'm speechless. I mean, that makes so much sense that I'm literally speechless. Like you're literally just tapping into yourself,
Yeah.
into your higher power, into your inner alignment. Like that's the work that you do is helping people come back home to themselves.
Hmm. Yeah.
Incredible. I know that you have so many beautiful resources and you even have a gift for our listeners. So, how does everybody find you online and what's the best way to connect with you?
Yeah, totally. I would love to connect with all of you. So I'm most active on Instagram, and my Instagram is just at my name, at Lauren Frontiera. And on TikTok as well. At TikTok, I'm at Intuition Coach. And if you find me through either of those platforms, you can link through to my YouTube. I share shorter tapping videos on Instagram and TikTok, but I do longer ones on YouTube. So I have lots of free tapping content out there to support you and beginning to experience more of the magic of this practice and to use it to support yourself. Um, my website is my name, laurenfrontier.com, and I have a free 5-day mini tapping course. So if you feel a tug to explore more of this practice and want to go a little deeper, I created that for you each day. You'll get a new email from me with a new tapping video. I'll guide you through a different practice each day to really just support you in experiencing even more of the magic of this work.
Amazing. We'll make sure to get all of those links into the show notes as well. So if you guys want just direct links to click on, please, please, please go to thegutsypodcast.com and find Lauren's episode, and we'll make sure that you have access to all that. Lauren, I would love to know what the word gutsy means to you.
Mm. As soon as you asked me that, it was like I dropped into my gut.
Oh, I love
like
that.
like like this embodied sense. So I'm going to share like what is intuitively flowing through for me, but it to me in this moment it means an embodied sense of your power, like really feeling rooted in your power and showing up from that place is so gutsy.
Oh, that is beautiful. That is big and beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you for sharing your wisdom and your knowledge with us today. And again, the beautiful work that you do. I mean, it really shifts lives. And so I know that the journey to get to where you are today has been like that windy river that you see from the airplane. But I can tell you that we are all really grateful that you followed it.
Thank you, love.
What an incredibly powerful, soothing episode of the Gutsy podcast, my friends. I would encourage you to pause and rewind and go through that tapping exercise as many times as needed. I mean, that was powerful. Like I had a good cry after that because so many emotions came up, and it's such a great reminder that you have the power, right? Like that's what we talk about on the podcast, and especially on Thursdays when we're talking about taking your power back. How about this week we talk about undoing the hustle, about that quickness, that grind, that scattered kind of energy, and let's come back to this. Like I want you to really truly embody and remember this feeling and knowing that you created it. You created this feeling, and that can be replicated. So this Thursday's Power Back, undoing the hustle so that, gosh, love, so you can feel way, way better like you do right now. Until then, connect with me on TikTok and Instagram using @thatlauraora. Tell me about your experience with this episode. And as always, until I see you next time, stay gutsy.